Suzanne.
Who's going to tell us we're live today?
We're live.
We are live. Hey, everybody. Welcome
Sharon
to
takes the jump.
Daily Success Mastermind. John Lavenia here with you with Tropical Shirt in an attempt to be almost as stylish as Bill. I'll never quite be there, but that's okay. And I've got a hat because it's hat day. Look at all these people with hats. Oh, my goodness. Who initiated this? I think this was Ivy. I think this was Ivy's birthday.
I did.
Yes. All right. I think Ivy is at fault for all these hats.
Thank you, Ivy.
I see Sharon and of course Suzanne. Oh, Suzanne, that's a great hat. Look at that hat. Oh my goodness. Bill,
That's
Kitty,
so
welcome. You know what, Sharon? Is that an elephant or a mouse? What is that you're wearing?
An elephant.
Yeah. And then of course we got Jane and Neil, and Neil appears to be doing the Mad Hatter deal.
Yeah.
Yeah, good stuff. Wendy, good to see you. Everyone with a hat. Evelyn, there you go. Javier's with us as well. Welcome, my
I love your hat.
Star, if you will.
Yes, yes. Exactly.
Star, give us one more look at your fast you got going on.
This is what I've normally done is by traveling.
Okay, I have a hat.
Oh, Caroline's got a hat.
Peaky Blinders.
There's Star's foot bath. You know, I was just saying to one of our to all of our friends here that I know some of you guys better than I know, like, you know, actual relatives and family. Like we hang out together, we do foot baths in London, we try on hats. Good to see you, Caroline. But it is Fun Friday. We got a light topic for today, and we've got hats and we've got tropical shirts, and who knows, this could grow into, if we start compounding all these different Friday ideas that we get, it could be like a freak show kind of experience here, like a circus. But
Love it.
yeah. But who's got a dog or a cat or
John, look at Javier.
John, sorry, I have a title for today. The lunatics have taken over the asylum.
Okay. Well, let's go to Javier real quick. Javier, show us that shirt, buddy. Make some noise so we can see you.
He has issues. That's what the shirt is.
Ah, there you go.
Oh.
I'm with Javi.
Yeah, I think we all do. Yeah, welcome
Nice
to the
job.
club, Javier. What do you think? You're unique or something? You got issues and none of us don't. All right.
He has gone hats crazy, hasn't he?
We got at least a little pet show going on here. Anybody got any pet?
Oh,
No pets today?
His cage.
No. Oh, I hear somebody calling a dog.
No, it's cat.
She's 14 and she's not moving.
They're all
She's
hot and flaking out.
I see her, Star. We see her.
Yeah.
Okay, she's doing her thing as cats do. They do their thing.
Oh,
Okay, so who's got a joke? Something to tickle our ribs before we get into it here.
Esther, you gotta say something.
all right, I'll be brave. I'll jump in. So, my husband and I both ride. I don't have a bike anymore. I ride on the back. But our neighbor desperately wants a Harley. He wants a Harley so bad he can taste it, but he can't afford all the shirts. Or hats.
Yeah, you know what? I think they make way more on their clothing than they make on actual machinery these days. Of course, stats are down across the motorcycling world. Although I did just buy a good friend of mine a couple of Harley, 2 shirts and a hat, $100, which is supposedly what HD really stands for, $100. Like you can't get out the door without at least $100 bill. But thank you, everybody. We're going to have a fun little topic here today. Welcome to all of our friends joining us on.
John, I've got a joke for you.
Oh, wait, does David have a joke? Stand by.
I've got a joke for you.
I have a hat.
Oh, and you've got a helmet.
I've got a hat.
I see that.
That's awesome.
Nikki's got a helmet of sorts. All right, I got a little bit hard to hear. I'm gonna mute all mics and then we can unmute individually. David, did you have something to offer us today that didn't involve cocktail bars? And come on out, brother. Do you have something? No, you're good. Okay. Very good. I'm going to ask.
Sorry, it doesn't involve cocktail bars. My 16-year-old daughter told me this one, so it should be all right. What's the biggest advantage of living in Switzerland?
I don't know.
Nor do I, but the flags are a big plus.
Ah, there you go. Very, very benign. Anyone who doesn't know, the Switzerland flag is a big plus. There you go. It's a white cross on red or red cross on, I think it's white cross on red. Hey, Mandy, who's
I've
that?
got a cat. This is Cooper. He doesn't like being picked up. He's Cooper, aka Fat Cat, because he's so fat.
Oh,
His
my
other
goodness.
brother was called Henry, to go with
Uh-huh.
Henry Cooper. He wasn't mine. I borrowed him from a neighbour and he stayed.
Fantastic.
Say
Beautiful
hello.
cat.
Say hello. He's gone.
Thank you, Mandy. Good stuff. By the way, for any of our new participants who are wondering why we do the whole dog and cat and frog and rat thing, because we've seen them all here, but there's a policy, and that is, and this is before we had started to create some more order in terms of technology and the opening and closing of microphones and all this. But the policy is that if a dog barks while your microphone is unmuted, you must present the dog so that we can all enjoy the dog. And that kind of reduced the background noise. It made people conscious of the state of their microphone, right? So, but yeah, we are a lot of animal lovers around here. But I'm going to ask Adrian Garner to come out here and share the floor with me for a little bit. By the way, this sort of format where we're going to have actually other facilitators here inside the different sessions we have. Of course, we'll continue to have our daily sessions at this time, but we've got lots of other, as I alluded to this week, lots of other shows that are going to be put on the calendar. I am this close to getting everything launched, guys. Thank you for all your patience. There's a whole lot going on behind the scenes to make this just a spectacle. Well, you guys know, I implore you to make a spectacle of yourself. So we're all going to do that via this mastermind group. But Mr. Gardner, sir, over there in Grand Cayman Island, I guess, you know what? You've probably got island fever by now, right? When was the last time you were off island?
The border is completely shut. No border opening yet, and no flights, only emergency flights. So we're locked in for the duration here.
Crikey. Well, the duration has to run its course here pretty soon, I think. I think it's, yeah. But good news for you and for me and for everyone, as we already alluded to, is that I know people like, you know, Star's like my sister now, right? Adrian, right? We go way back. Like I've known you for, my goodness, it's been hours and hours, you know. but the truth is that I think for a lot of people, or the reality for a lot of people is that in the face of COVID, and with or without COVID, okay, but in the face of that, certainly, as social creatures, we have to communicate with people. And I know, being a guy who's been in sales and marketing almost all my life, there is the need to communicate with people, not just with our dogs, right? Or with our plants, although I hear that's therapeutic. How do we do that? How do we do that in Grand Cayman or in Phoenix, Arizona, for that matter, or in off the coast of Scotland, right? Like some of our friends here. How do we do that via the internet? And of course, there's a therapeutic value of that, but there's also business ramifications of that. All opportunities come through other people, not from, but through. Okay, so who are you dealing with? Hopefully somebody, right? Hopefully a lot of somebodies, as we expand our reach, be, do, and have more. Adrian, what are your thoughts on this whole idea of online communications versus, maybe you've been across the table from somebody most of your life? I don't know. What do you do?
Yeah,
right?
well, that was my question to you the other day, John, which sparked off that conversation. A lot of what we were taught in the past and the way most of us have been brought up was to communicate and connect to people face to face. And we've always believed, or I certainly have, that you had to take the plane, you had to go and see somebody, you had to sit there to really get the connection going and to really make the sale or get the project underway. And I was interested in your thoughts on how you see the difference between totally online communication, as we're now stepping into, and face-to-face. So when you're not face-to-face, can you make the same connection? How do you do that? What have you learned and seen over the years is the difference? And how would you go about it? I thought that would be a very interesting thing to hear about.
Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you for bringing up the idea, because it's sometimes I just take it for granted. And I think to a degree, because certainly everyone who's here on our Zoom room right now has been indoctrinated into the idea of clicking a button rather than, getting on a plane. Okay. Which I
Yep.
find delightful, right? My goodness, I'm here, I'm there, I'm everywhere. So when we think about speed to market, which is the first idea that comes up for me, right? How many people, let's say, for example, how many of you here have experience in like home business, network marketing kind of stuff? Back in the old days, you would have, I guess they would have like a house meeting, right? And you'd invite the people over and you'd, I don't know, draw circles on the whiteboard or something and hand out samples, however that goes. And I know, having worked with a lot of people, a lot of old school guys that came from that space, they're like that. It was valid, and it kind of still is valid if you can get people to show up, which people seem to be more reluctant to do, certainly with COVID, of course, but even, notwithstanding that. So what do? We do something like this. Now, here's, I think, Adrian's question is, how do we do that with the same amount of power, with connection, with buy-in, so to speak? In other words, how do we actually have a dialogue like we're having now?
Yeah,
Okay.
John, take your Maserati example, where you bought all the extras on the Maserati. The salesman was right there, and it's very different. The salesman's got you there. He's telling the story, and we all know there are techniques. How is it different?
Great. Here's I would say the one difference. What we lose in terms of a captured audience. Think of it like this: like there's a certain amount of output. So here's 100% of the outflowing communication. But how much of that is being inflowed? How much of that is being paid attention to? That's the question. And when I'm sitting across the table or standing in the car dealership or whatever, whether I'm the cause point or the receipt point, it is 100% transmission receive, right? Transmit receive, 100%. There's no question about who is being talked to or who's talking to me, right? No question about it. Nothing vague. We can do the same thing with electronics. If it's, let's say, for example, Skype call or one-on-one Zoom or things like that. But as soon as you get into a group, which now gives us the advantage of quantity over time, right? So how many receipt points are there for that communication in the same amount of time? It's still 100% transmission, but let's say we've got 100 people on a Zoom room, plus here's everybody on YouTube, Facebook, wherever else this gets published, right? So now there are that many more receipt points, but none of them are 100%. So let's say right now, like Adrian and I'm looking at him, he's looking at me. Okay, so I would say it's a really high, let's say 99%, receipt of the idea that I'm sending, that I'm transmitting here. Okay, what could diminish that? Here's the question, I think, when it comes to attempting to do business online, where you've done it maybe, 100%, offline up to this point, is how can you mitigate and eliminate distractions, barriers, right? Certainly there's technological barriers. There's, when people just don't have maybe an aptitude, or, I've had so many times where I've gotten people, even in like a consultation type environment, not just like a, like a group conversation here, but they're actually interested in a product or service or something. And I'm attempting to, get some ideas from them. Like, what do you want? How can I help you? Right. What are your needs? And they won't even turn their camera on. Like, they're skeptical. They're afraid because I don't know. I mean, is somebody going to capture my identity or something? Really? So that could be a barrier, right? It's a very subjective one. It's not necessarily rational, although I don't know their whole past. Maybe they've been duped on the internet or something, which I guess is the other thing to consider, is that the number one question in the minds of people when looking to do business over the internet is, who can I trust? That's it. That's why I know we've got a lot of people selling on Amazon here, right? That's a viable, trustable platform. But who is Amazon? Well, people don't really think about that. They just know Amazon. Oh, okay, that's a trustworthy source. It's actually Adrian. It's Star. Oh, I don't even know who that person is. But the facade of trust is there. Do people get ripped off on Amazon? Probably not a whole lot. I don't think I've ever been ripped off on Amazon. So that's the other barrier, are people's false expectations, right, of what it's like to be online. And we could say a lot of this also is attributed to perhaps, you know, we're an older generation versus a newer generation. I know we've got people here in their 20s, some teens, right? My goodness, we're going to be launching a kids show. They got no inhibition about the internet. They also haven't had their cage rattled, you know, as much as some of us have, having been around and seen, you know, in a business sense, the integrity or lack thereof of people who are attempting to communicate and offer to us. But I think here's the main thing, and then I want to hear your opinions about it. Okay, we just talked about some barriers. The other thing would be distractions, and I'd say a lot of that rests, the responsibility rests on the person who is controlling or originating the communication. The cardinal rule of online sales and marketing, the cardinal rule is don't be boring. Don't be boring. Oh my goodness. We could say the same with copywriting, right? We could say the same thing with telling a joke, humor, right? Are people interested, right? And can you keep people interested in the communication? That's where, you know, some good oratory comes in, which is something that I've been studying for some years. Purportedly, I'm fairly good at it. We can have a conversation. I know sometimes we've gone here way over an hour, you know, and we got lots more to say, but guess what, folks, we're out of time. But that's because what? Because you're engaged, you're interested. So when it comes to mitigating distractions, okay, part of that is on the shoulders of the person who is at least willing enough to receive the communication that they tuned in. Okay, part of that, a lot of it is on your shoulders, because especially on the internet, where just like you were a click away, so is every other distraction. So is the you know, the kitten videos on YouTube that somebody just clicked on or whatever, right? So does that mean you got to be all things to all people all the time? No, that's impossible. But when you have the ideal target audience that people are interested in this topic. I mean, look, right now, if we were talking about, I don't know, something I've got no video games. That's a huge topic, by the way, video games, right? There's whole websites where people make money by having others watch them play the video game. I guess they're getting video game tips or something. I don't know. I don't have that much free time, but just not interested, I guess, right? It's cool, nice, okay, but not my bag, right? If that was your bag, well, you'd probably be over there watching video games right now. So there's got to be a message to market match. And then there's got to be enough, I think, Adrian, there's got to be enough conviction on the part of whoever's speaking, right? Like here, I'm not here to offer you theory. We can go read books if we want theory, and we will, right? I take in theory all the time, but then I see, how does it work in my life? Here's what's real for me. How about you, right? Oh my goodness, now we're engaged. Now we can have a conversation about what really works or doesn't, right? If it doesn't work, let's talk about how this doesn't work. So that's relevant because why? Because of our own personal interests. So this may sound cynical, and yes, having been around, sales and marketing for as long as I have, we tend to adopt some more cynical type theories about people. But there's one, again, which may sound cynical, and that is, what's in it for me? What's in it for me? If I'm always thinking about what's in it for the other person, in other words, can I put them in their, can I get into their position and think, why should I care? Why should I care? Same thing when crafting, like we're talking about online communications. One form of that is email or advertising copy, right? Or whatever. So there's features and there's benefits. Features and benefits. In the middle, there's advantages. This is actually called the FAB method, F-A-B, features, advantages, benefits. But to bridge the gap between features and benefits, we've got to ask the question, why should I care? Let's say I was buying that product. Oh, it's got this feature. Fine. Why should I care? Answer that question. Now we've got a benefit, right? So I'm always thinking, what's in it for me, for the customer or the target audience. Now we can eliminate a lot of those distractions. Okay. One more thing I'll say is that the larger the group, the higher the tendency for someone to think, may not voice this, okay, but someone to think he's talking to everybody else but not me. The knee-jerk disqualifier, right? Oh, that's not directed towards me, right? He's talking to all these other people. I'm an outsider. I'm kind of on the fringe of the group, right? I mean, after all, there's 1,000 people on the webinar. He doesn't know but I, right? The butt eyes. This is called the butt eyes, right? So sometimes people will put an imaginary wall up between the message and their ears because of this self-imposed uniqueness, or yeah, but it doesn't apply to me. And they may not vocalize that, okay? But back to our original one-on-one scenario where I'm sitting across the table from Adrian, there's no question about who I'm talking to. Yes, this communication is for you exclusively, right? I think one of the advantages that people have when they go to seminars or they participate in mastermind groups like this, one advantage that you could create for yourself is to eliminate the idea that this applies to anyone else but you, right? This is all for you, all for you. And how many times have we heard, Adrian, where people say, oh, I can't believe the timing of this. This is exactly what I'm dealing with in my life right now. Is that magical or something? Did I have a crystal ball? And you know what? Here's our topic for today, just for you. No, I don't have. I mean, it'd be cool, I suppose. It would be kind of confusing too, because we're all different. However, your willingness to listen and see how these ideas apply to you made it relevant for you at that time. How many topics do we have? Like, do we invent new truths or something to talk about here? No, there's one topic, one cause and effect. That's the topic every day, right? There's a whole lot of ways to apply that. That's it. What are we doing here? Like in this particular conversation, we're reestablishing cause for people who are quite powerful already. I can't give you anything you don't already have, right? I'm facilitating a conversation, but when lights turn on in you, the lights were already there. When you guys say something and I'm listening, okay, because this is for me too. This isn't for everybody else but me. No. But because I am intent on getting the meaning of what you're saying, right? Because that's my intention, right? You've got an intention of being heard. I've got an intention to hear it, okay? And see how that shakes out in my life. Maybe I can use it, maybe I can't. And oh my goodness, how relevant. Thank you for the reminder. What do you mean, John? I give you a reminder? Yeah. What do you think? I've arrived or something? No, be my mentor. Star, Adrian, Kitty, mentor me, damn it. Teach me something. What worked or didn't work for you? Please, right? What did Socrates say? I know nothing but the fact of my ignorance. Great, be like that. Be a good listener. By whatever technological via, people buy from people, right? Oh, via Amazon, via Zoom, via Facebook, via who cares, right? People buy from people. Who's originating that communication and who's listening?
John, I think what you demonstrate is that you can't do it though without the passion and enthusiasm behind the message. And you demonstrate that every day. I think to be successful, you've got to love what you're doing. And we've all got to love the products and the things that we're finding for people to be able to communicate as you do. Otherwise, it just doesn't work. As you say, what's in it for them? It falls flat. It's boring. It doesn't connect.
And Adrian, you and I have connected. For those who don't know Adrian as well as I do, very astute man. Well-studied, big thinker, right? I like that. So Adrian's going to be facilitating some of our sessions moving forward. I'm really excited about that, as is several other people, which, by the way, for all the people who are gearing up to participate in some of the facilitation that's going to be going on here, I will be in communication with you this weekend. There's a lot going on behind the scenes, but these things take time. It's like a fine cheese. It improves with age until a certain point, then it just turns to mold. So we got to get this thing out the door. So where is Joe, and then Star, and then Ego? Let's open up the floors. Where's Joe Olson Clark?
Hi there. Can you hear me clearly?
I can, but you're not on the beach, so I don't know who you are. I can't recognize.
No, unfortunately, my green screen has collapsed, so I am in my just little office at the moment. I just wanted to talk about communications. Now, I'm an ex soft skills trainer for a global company. I used to work for British Airways, so I was doing soft skills for loads of people, and communication was always a big thing. Communication in any environment is key, especially in a global marketplace. Now, something you might think I'm being a bit controversial about is not only are words our greatest asset, but words are also our worst enemy. And it's about how we use them and utilize them. Now, I love Zoom and I love Skype and all these things because words are just a tiny part of communication. A lot of communication, particularly face-to-face or on Zoom or Skype links, you're actually seeing the intent, the authenticity of the person. You're seeing hearing not only what they're saying, you're seeing how they're saying it, you're seeing their facial expressions, and that is so much easier to deal with. One thing I used to also train about was how the written word can be totally misinterpreted, depending on where you live, what language you speak. If English is your second language, it's always open to interpretation. And particularly as we're dealing with people, suppliers and people we're shipping to and this kind of thing, it's sometimes quite difficult. So what my message would be about communication is always be authentic, make sure your meaning and your intention is clear when you're articulating what your wants and your needs are. And that's all I have to say, really. You know, because remember, when you're doing it over the, the internet or on the phone, people are only hearing your words. They haven't got anything else to judge your meaning by. So just be clear and authentic.
Great tips. There you go. There's an old saying, confuse them, you lose them, right? So yeah, interesting stuff. We can get into, word etymology and meanings and really good stuff. It's a huge topic. Let's go to Star, then Ego, then Bill. Hey, Star, what's going on?
Hey, hello, everybody. And I'd just like to say thank you, Joe. And do you know, when you were talking out of your great depth of experience, which I know you have, because we've spoken out of this forum about that, it reminded me of what Mark said yesterday about when he went to the group with his problem and he realized that he had, a multitude of professionals on hand to give expert advice from many, many years of experience in the field. And Joe, you've just sort of shown us exactly that. You've, multitude of experience. So thank you. But back to the topic of communication and communication over technology rather than face to face, and since lockdown, so I work with quite a big team and we've all had to adapt to Zoom quite rapidly. And I'm seconded to a government department, so their technology was rather poor. So we had to put up with loads of people couldn't join, failings in the community, in the comms. So it was not only did we have to adapt to eventually we got them to adapt to Teams. I don't even know, Microsoft Teams, which is a better format, but they were choosing anyway, boring. However, it took us a couple of months to get that ironed out. But most people have adapted. However, some people are not adapting, and it's not about age and experience. I mean, we've got some older people who have adapted fine and some younger people who found it really, really difficult without the face-to-face body language and contact. And it is, the etiquette that you have to adapt. And I mean, you know how, John, at the beginning of your meetings, you do a bit of a name drop and try to engage everyone individually. And like you said, if you sitting at the back, you feel like you're not included, you're not being spoken to. I mean, that's what I've taken to doing, even when, I have one meeting once a month, my largest one that I have to deal with. It's about 44 people. And that are on the roll call, but not all of them turn up. So I do a roll call. Hello, everybody. And I just sort of make it a bit of I kind of turn into the sort of smiley entertainer, really, in order to break that ice and bring everyone through that barrier of technology and screens. And it does work well, but I've sat in other people's meetings that don't have that sort of personable reach through the screen temperament and technique, and those meetings are really difficult. It's really hard. So it's I think the key to it, and when I recruited my best friend into my company, and she was really nervous about doing her first big meeting, and I just said, make a joke. make a joke right at the front, bring everybody in, everyone relaxes, and you can see everyone. Make everyone turn their cameras on so you can see people's faces. You get that. And you know, it's certainly a skill that we're all learning now. But back to the Amazon stuff. So as some of you know, I've placed my deposit, my first order with my supplier, and oh, I'm on 10% battery, I better talk fast. And I had a Skype call with my supplier, and we had a lovely, lovely chat, made really good friends. She's an absolutely lovely woman, and I'm so fully confident in that connection there by seeing her face and her seeing mine, and Elvie popped into the screen to say hi. So she's met my family, and, you know, I feel like I'm building a good relationship with personal connections and through the screen. You know, I think it is possible. I don't think that it hinders us. It's about how you utilize the tool. And it's all about, if you're having trouble with that sort of level of communication, then I think you need to look further into how you're communicating in general. And that's that. And I better quickly put my shoes on and run and plug my phone in.
Okay, very good, Star. My pleasure. And thank you for sharing how you've taken some of the same style or methodology and applied it to another field, right? That's the whole point of all this, is that we can use it. So, you know, another great thing is what's called a damaging admission. This is a device that's used in advertising. Here in the United States, we've got Hertz Car Rental is the biggest car rental company. And then there's Avis, they're number 2. And their slogan is, yeah, well, we try harder, right? So think about that. We may not be, let's say you're like a mom and pop, you know, bed and breakfast or something, right? We may not be the Ritz-Carlton or the, you know, the Waldorf or the big hotel, but you get more personalized service, right? So it's kind of like admitting we're not all things to all people, right? Or some foibles that you've had, things like that endear people to you. You're not just like hovering over them like some authority figure per se, even if you are an authority figure. Good stuff. Thank you so much. Where's Ego? She's got some authority. Where's my friend Ego?
Hello. Hi, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. So on the issue of communication, so I totally agree with what Star and Joe have said. The way I'm kind of thinking about this is internal teams and external meetings. So I, for a number of years, I've managed global teams, and there've been times when, you know, we can't all be in the same place. We're all in different time zones. So there's different types of etiquette that's kind of made aware. So, you know, you mentioned show up. So you basically show up. Yes, Manchester City top, really. Sorry, Jane and Neil just distracted me. Yeah, so show up and show up with intention. So, you know, you're in a meeting. Yes, I know you can't see people's faces, you can't make eye contact, but when you're intentional, you go in there to get something from it. And, you know, for me, the Zoom meeting, Google Hangout, it's not new because it's something that I've done for over 20 years. However, you know, that whole thing about it putting a barrier in front of you, there's no need for it. I know people are busy, you know, the cameras have to be off, but when I'm in a work meeting, I actually show up. I might be in my PJ bottoms down there, but, you know, I wear something, you know, that's decent. I don't show up like I've just rolled out of bed. So I show up to receive. So that's one, you know, and then you can see, so with larger meetings, I know it's very difficult, and that's where the host actually controls things, right? So when, you know, if you're face to face, you can see if, you know, you can tell if someone's finished talking. Whereas with these sorts of meetings online, it's very difficult, right? So with me, what I do is I have the speaker on, right? So whoever's speaking, I have that person on so that I see when I can step in. So a good example, I knew that I was going to be speaking after Star, and I muted my my phone. However, I made sure there wasn't noise in the background to distract everybody else. So that's also part of showing up with intention, not distracting yourself, but also not distracting the others. And then for the external meetings, like talking with suppliers or potential clients, you talked about trust, right? So some of these people you don't know. What would I do to ensure that I show up with intention, trusting that person that I've never met? I do my due diligence. I find out about their company. I find out about the individual, and they may have apprehensions about me because they don't know me. They've never met me. And there might be something I know about them that then helps break the ice, and it can build some sort of trust. So, you know, like I said, it's the due diligence. If it's say you're buying a car, my brother is in the middle of buying, he sold his car, he's buying another car. He can't go see the car, but the salesperson has engaged with him, not boringly, taking videos of the car, doing a tour, cracking jokes, being really personable, and knowing about him, my brother, to then help make the sale happen. So it's showing up with intention and really doing the due diligence before, you know, before the meeting. So, you know, you have to prepare, right?
Mm.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you, Ego.
I'm in the car.
You know what? She's been doing this for 20 years, right? And by the way, you mentioned Google Hangouts. I remember Hangouts on Air, which is now YouTube Live. And I was thinking, you know, I've kind of defaulted to Zoom lately, but that's still a viable platform. Hangouts on Air. I don't know if that's
it is. So there's Hangout, and then there's Meet now, Google Meet, which so with Hangout you needed to have a Gmail account, but with Meet you don't.
Oh.
And it's actually more secure, less hacks and things. So
Are we barking up the wrong tree with Zoom
choice
right now? I don't think we got any Zoom people on here. Are we?
I'm not saying anything.
Okay.
Personal preference.
Okay, very good. Zoom's working for now. I'm going to look into Meets. And now Microsoft's got something called Teams, right? Which
Teams, yes, that's correct. Yeah.
Which is the next level of Skype or something. I don't know. One thing I don't want is more icons across my dock on my Mac. I don't want more icons. I want less icons. Okay, very good. Let's go to Bill, then Habiba, and then Glenn. What's going on, Bill?
Hi guys, how are you all?
Oh,
I should
good.
say good afternoon in a typical British way.
Yeah.
So today is obviously all about communication. And one of the first things that I was taught as a communicator is reveal yourself to somebody. Take your glasses
I'm getting
off.
a demo of that right now. That's a demo right there.
Don't, you know, let the person see your face, look at them directly and communicate directly. But we can't do that now. And I'm on a positive note from what Ego was saying. It is about due diligence. Many of you will know that previously I used to look after certain important people. And sometimes I had to go to the airport and pick somebody up that I had never saw in my life before. But my due diligence was to find out about it as much as that person as I could and be able to pick him out of 300 people getting off an aircraft, which I always succeeded in because I'd done my proper work. I knew what I was doing. The same style of communication can obviously work when I've had to deal with a coachload of people that would be not very pleasant, let's just say. And you can approach that in many ways. You can worry about it, or you can come across very confident, where you stride into the middle of them and you're reading them all the time. And you pick the guy that looks like he's the leader. Let's have a conversation with this gentleman. And you break the ice, and it is a smile and a start and a wee bit of maybe a joke with a jag, you know, telling them how you're going to do things and what you would love him to be able to help you with. These are all these things. But for Zoom, now, this afternoon, I had a meeting with a client, a guy that's going to supply me. It's only 100 miles away down in Dublin, but we had a great meeting. Fantastic guy. And you know, it is about being able to come across easily with people and having building that easy rapport that you appear approachable. You're not standoffish. And I have to say, as somebody that only sort of ventured into English language and English literature in the academic field, I actually have had more communication positivity emails back to me from people that have said, wow, the way you've written this, you know, I'm really pleased. You put a smile on my face and you've been able to do that. That's probably from the storytelling angle, John, as opposed to anything. But it is just that, you know, you should not let this sort of clinical thing, which it could become on Zoom, take away from your personality or from your approach to people. You have all the best gear here to still come across to people, even via voice or written word. It's all on how you approach it and all on how you do that, as Ego was saying, your due diligence on who you're communicating with. If they are somebody from a different country, look it up, see what way they approach certain words and things. It doesn't take you 10 hours to do that. You know, a couple of minutes on Google, you'll soon figure out what way these guys see the rest of the world, and that's how to do it. That's my little piece for today. Thank you.
Good stuff. You know, Bill, while you were saying that, I was thinking it also works the other way. People may have assumptions like I'm just some, you know, some knuckle dragging Yank from America, right? And so I can kind of play with that a bit, right?
Yeah.
Never mind that I got 147 IQ and, you know.
Correct.
But like people from other countries, they're expecting an American, whatever that means, right? So I can kind of play with that.
Well, yeah. I think there's a few on here we might be able to play with, John.
Right. You know what? One person who's always fun to play with is Habiba, and then Glenn, and then Mark. What's going on, Habiba?
Hello, Johnny. I'm loving this conversation and this whole thing about authenticity. I want to play off of what Ego brought up with due diligence, because what comes up for me too is in conversations where I may not have a lot of background on somebody, what it boils down to is the quality of the questions that I ask. So for me, that's one of the important pieces in all of this is what are the questions we're asking to gather the information for us to be able, so, you know, with the work that I do, I want to make sure that I'm finding out what their needs are, what their desires are, what the, you know, how it is that I can serve them is going to be based on what they tell me. Right. So the quality of questions is the other piece in the mix that is coming up for me in this conversation.
Mm-hmm. Good stuff. And like Bill was saying, we can prepare quality questions based on a little bit of pre-research. Thank you, Habiba. Always good to see you, my friend. Let's go to Glenn, then Mark, then I think Ivy. Is that Ivy? Hey, Glenn, what's going on, man?
Habiba, you've been peeking at my notes. What's going on here?
Of course.
Reverend Lavinia, we still got time for a joke?
We sure do, man.
Well, you know, Paul and I were talking about this and, you know, trying to think, you can never think of a joke when you need one, right? But it finally occurred to me, this story that I heard about this reclusive billionaire who fell ill and ended up on his deathbed, and he called to his side his three most trusted advisors. He called his physician, his attorney, and his priest. And he said, gentlemen, you know that this is the end for me. You also know that during my life, I've been a ruthless businessman. I've never cut any breaks. I've stepped on the necks of my competitors and never given a dime to charity, never believed in that sort of thing. But now that I've come to the end, I want you three gentlemen to know that I don't intend to change a thing. As a matter of fact, I'm going to take it all with me. So I have had my will drawn up with instructions for each of you. And they are as follows. At the time of my funeral and interment, I'm going to give you, each of you know that I have a total net worth of $3 billion. I'm going to give each of you a third of my wealth. And I demand that you place the money in the ground with me because I'm taking it with me. They're shocked, but what can they do? It's his will. So the man passes away, funeral, each one shows up with a trunk. You can imagine that much money. Each one has the trunk lowered into the grave and they say their farewells. A couple of weeks later, the three of them are sitting in a bar having a drink, and there's as you can imagine, an awkward silence. And finally, the priest speaks up and he says, "Gentlemen, my conscience will not allow me to remain silent. I must confess to you that at the time of the internment, I did not put in the full $1 billion. I only put half, and I used the other half to build schools and daycare centers for poor children in South America. I just feel I needed to confess that to you, gentlemen." And the physician says, "Well, Father, since you've been so honest and so transparent, I must do the same. I only put in half of the $1 billion, and I used the rest to build 10 new hospitals for poor children on the African continent. And I believe this is going to make a difference for these children's lives. And so I wanted you gentlemen to know that." And the lawyer says, "Gentlemen, I am appalled. How dare you violate this man's final wishes? I'm outraged at your ethics, gentlemen. I'll have you know that I put in a check for the entire amount."
That's great.
Now, about that, yeah, Habiba was peeking at my notes, and I deeply resent her for it. So I was thinking about this communication. Maybe it's my brain, maybe I missed it, maybe I was downstairs getting my hat, but I keep thinking that communication has to be two-way, doesn't it? It has to be you sharing and then me sharing and then back and forth. And Habiba hit it so beautifully in saying the quality of the questions we ask. There's a book written, I'm not sure, the name escapes me. There's a book out there called Questions Are the Answer. And there's another book I have on my shelf here called Question-Based Selling. So yes, need to ask powerful questions. But you know what else? I got 2 of these as opposed to 1 of these. And one very powerful question that I can always ask is 6 beautiful words, 6 magic words. What do you mean by that? If someone is talking or expressing themselves, and maybe there's a saying in their culture that I don't quite understand, or maybe they've said something and I'm not sure, and I don't want to, give a wrong response or a response that's not appropriate to what they actually meant. Well, if you're not sure, ask and find out. What do you mean by that? Really, can you tell me more? I'd like to, can you go into a little more detail about that? I want to make sure that I understand you, you see? And then after I ask that question, there's a very key action that I need to take next, and that is shut the F up and listen. And give enough time and enough space without interrupting and without preparing my own response, because now I'm listening, right? I'm not just waiting for my turn to talk. I'm actually listening. So I'm giving my partner in this communication enough time for their entire thought to flow out. You see what I mean? That was something that I was taught by an old mentor of mine. Got to give people time for their whole thought to flow out. And see, that way, once I do choose to respond, then I know that I'm responding in a way that's appropriate to their need, Habiba, and that's appropriate to the topic of conversation. And now I have a better idea of exactly how I can help and how I can help them reach their goals, enhance their life. So, STFU and listen. Back to you, John.
Thank you, Glenn. You're getting some love in the chat roll for your ring light. People like your ring light because it's showing up in your glasses very obviously. There you go. So maybe we'll have a tech training on here about video tech and how to, because that is a communication thing, right? I mean, video itself is a media of light, right? Whereas sound is a media of air, right? Vibrations in the air. Video is light. So those of you thinking you need to buy a big expensive camera, let me disabuse you of that thought. All you need is some good lighting and you're good to go. We got 2 more hands up and then we're going to wrap up for the day. We got Mark, Lieutenant Colonel Riggle, and then we've got, I think, Ivy, Ivba. I think that's Ivy. I know Ivy by face. I don't know Ivba. What's up, Mark?
Hey, John. I'm going to take a little bit different perspective. I've been listening to everybody here talk about interaction with people, kind of on maybe the marketing or sales front and interaction in that regard. But what I want to talk about is kind of leadership in communication, and how that and what I implemented over the years that I worked in that kind of capacity. I think people find that when you take the time to explain or understand as we go through training, and it gives them the opportunity to build trust in the decisions that are being made, and how you're communicating the things that need to occur in a certain framework, in a certain order. When those moments come, when you are living, instead of living in minutes or hours or days, and you're only living literally in seconds, and it literally is living or otherwise in seconds, then all that's gone into the communication and the training and the building of trust now kind of kicks in. And one hopes through leadership by example, and through the comments that, the direction that needs to be made in those moments, that people will say, well, we spent a lot of time, and this person made sure I understood how to go through this, and I feel really confident now. He's not letting us ask why at this point, because we know why, and we trust that the decisions that are going to be made and that we move through are going to hopefully have the desired effect, at least to the maximum extent possible. So I think there's a time element that's involved also in the communication, from having to have the ability and the wherewithal and the environment to spend that communication and its quality. And then when it leads to a point where there is a real compression in communication, people will follow and work with that communication without question. And that's that trust factor. So spend the time developing the trust, so that when a time comes when you can't offer the why necessarily, people understand what the why is, and they will follow because they trust more than anything.
Man, we have got to get into Steve Covey's 7 Habits book, because what you were just talking about, Mark, what he called the emotional bank account. Here's the father and the son, and where the father is, demanding of the son and kind of invalidating the son's feelings about how the son doesn't like school. Don't you know there's a great school? Don't you know we're paying a lot of money for the school? Those are withdrawals from the bank account. Whereas, oh, well, tell me more about that, right? Well, why do you feel that way? And then, perhaps relating a story and maintaining and validating the self-determinism of the child, right? That's a deposit in the bank account, and therefore instruction doesn't take as long, right? So it's like, yeah, well, there's trust and credibility there now, right? This is a huge topic, with or without technology. Mark, thank you. You got a huge amount of experience with this. Let's go to Ivy. And then I see Teresa.
Hello. Hi, John.
Ivy.
Hello, everyone. Yes, it's Ivy. It's Ivy with my full name when I'm on my laptop, but when I'm on the go on my phone, it's just my Ivy BA. So apologies for the confusion, everyone. But it's me, the one and same.
It was a mystery to me.
So I'm just thinking about communications and the weird and wonderful worlds that we've been thrown into. I've got a new boss at work, and he joined the team during lockdown. So he's never met anyone face to face. So his introduction to us was on MS Teams, the Microsoft Teams. So he doesn't know how tall we are, what we're like in the office. He hasn't got, I guess, the privilege or the advantage of seeing our quirks or our mannerisms or, nervous tics or whatever else we may have. He doesn't even know where we like to sit, in the office. So I've taken, and this is what I do in most conversations and in most meetings, I tend to play a particular role So the one I've chosen to play when I am in meetings with my new boss is to be the one that gives him the background information. So I will sit with him. So I'll have a meeting before the meeting and I'll prep him on who the players are, who are going to be seated around the table and who are going to be on the call. So he knows going in a bit more information. So when so-and-so starts kicking off or, you know, blowing their own trumpet or, you know, getting way aggressive or confrontation about whatever else it is, he knows that that's just the way this person is, that they're known within the, you know, the business as being the stirrer. So I try and give him, you know, kind of like background info on the different players. And he's appreciated that because not only is he new to the organization, he's new to the area of the business that I oversee. And so I'm having to teach him the ropes so that he knows and understands what I do on a daily basis. And just for him to read up. So when he walks into a meeting, he's not the new kid on the block and people don't make fun of him and say, you know, how did you get the job, et cetera, et cetera. I've also set up meetings, you know, with the resident experts in different fields, you know, across the organization, just to help him settle in. And I think he's appreciated that. So he knows now that we're going to go into a meeting and I'll be able to field the questions. You know, he knows that at the end of the meeting, I'll call him up and say, you know, do you have any questions after the meeting? Was there anything that wasn't clear? Were there any acronyms we used that were way over your head? You know, so he knows that I'll catch up with him just to make sure he got as much as he could from the meeting and he didn't feel, oh my goodness, what, you know, why did I sign up for this job? So I've tried to make his settling in a lot smoother than it could be. And I find I play a similar role in most meetings I'm in. I'm either a voice of reason or I'm the one that brings people back to the subject matter because some people can just waffle and just go right off topic and we just need to be brought back. And I'll be the one that says, okay, fine, we've all had a moan, you know, we've said what we want to say, okay, fine. So we know it's not working right. What can we do to make it better? I'm all about constructive criticism. You know, let's not moan for moaning's sake. We know it's not working. What are your suggestions to make it work? I'm all about action. So if we're going to sit in a meeting for, you know, for 2 hours and we don't come out with any clear actions, that's a waste of time for me. So I find that I play, you know, certain roles in meetings and it's just interesting how, you know, I've been labeled as, well, if you want to know what's really going on and you want to know where we're at, ask Ivy. She won't mince words. But what I'm also learning to do, and I think this is something that I face probably with my racial, you know, gender background, whatever else it is, that if somebody else said the same thing I said, they're termed to be assertive. When I say certain things, sometimes I get labeled as aggressive. And so, you know, I now have champions in the business that pretty much say, no, she's not being aggressive. She's just telling you like it is, because this is what we need to do. So I don't even have to stand up for myself anymore, because I think enough people now know who I am. And that this is, you know, with me, what you see is what you get. Yes, I'm a strong personality. Yes, I'm confident. So when I speak, there are no ums and ahs, you know, there's no hesitation. I think through what I want to say and I come out right and I make my suggestions. And if you don't like them, that's fine. But at least I put in my 2 cents worth. So in terms of communication, I think, you know, one needs to go in deciding, you know, what part of them they want to show up. Is all of you going to show up, or is only one side of you going to show up? You know, are you going to be real and authentic when you show up, or are you going to tell people what you think they'd like to hear and not what they need to hear? So you need to decide, you know, what version of yourself is going to show up every time you communicate. And that's what you get known for. I mean, there's some people in you know, within the business I work in that are known as yes men. You know, they will never tell you anything contrary. They will always, you know, nod to everything you say, even if what you're talking is going to sink the ship. You know, but I think people know that I would put it in as kind of way as possible, but I will let people know when whatever track we're going down is going to lead to destruction. I'm going to say, guys, we've been here before. Can we not make the same mistake twice, kind of thing? You know, so when it comes to communication, I'm really intentional and determined about what part of me, if all of me is going to show up, and what role I intend to play. So that's what came to mind as you were talking.
Wow. what an asset you are to any organization.
Aw,
You know,
thank you, John.
Thank you. I saw Teresa's hand was up. I guess we'll wrap up with Therese, and it is the top of the hour. Where's Therese? Where'd she go?
Hello. How
There
is
she is.
It's a little bit loud in this space that I'm in. I hope you can hear me all right.
Yeah, we're good.
Good. Well, I haven't spoke up this week, so I wanted to make sure and say hello to everyone before we head off for the weekend. Happy birthday to Adrian. And thank you, everyone. It's always a hard act. It's always hard to be last to chat because there's so many brilliant conversations going on ahead of me. But I came in a little late on the call, so I missed the beginning. But I think I've got the gist of of where we're going here. And I guess what kept coming up for me was I am, come from 26 years of kind of old-fashioned sales repping or sales managering, right? And cold calling, driving from city to city across the country, and popping in on independent fine jewelry retailers, third, fourth, fifth generations, chain stores, you name it. And I think my success in the industry was based on my ability to be present, and my intuition, and just my natural way to be. I'm a strong communicator, but I can kind of get to the heart of things. And of course, I did my research beforehand. I knew everything about the stores, the history, the family history, et cetera, what lines they were carrying, who their closest competitor is. There's a lot of research that went into that. And what I find kind of interesting about our new model, if you will, is there's still all that research to be done, as many of you have said, but there's a new way to communicate. And it's, via email. Yes, I communicated via email previously, but not with this much intensity. So for me, my lesson in all of this is when I'm writing my email or I'm reading emails, I have to remind myself, I like to check the box off, done, 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 and I've got my checklist I'm running down, but I have to remind myself, take your time and read the email. Read the one that happened before this one. Read what your response was. Think about your response. Read it, and then hit send. So I think there's just a lot more, I think being patient, being extremely observant, being very clear, but yet still trying to be emotive and thinking about connecting with people, from a heartfelt place is really important. And, dealing with these suppliers now, I keep thinking about, the relationships I had built with so many people over the years. And when I'm sending out RFQs to and I'm going to get back 200 responses, it's like, okay, so these people will potentially be, in my contact list for future products. So how am I going to manage this first point of communication? And basically what I've been doing is just taking the first 10 or 20 that actually have items that are what I'm asking about. I'm going and researching, go to Google Maps, find out where they're located in whichever country they're in, and see how long they've been in business. Obviously, I still don't know a lot about that individual that's communicating with me, but I am trying to do my work and kind of build a little more personal connection. So anyway, I guess for me, the lesson here is just be patient, make sure your communication is authentic, don't feel like you have to answer it right away, rush it and get it done, be with the communication. So anyway, thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Therese. That's another great reminder. Adrian, back to our original discussion, is one of the advantages of the technology is that sometimes, like with email, you don't have to click that send button exactly right now. In fact, I've told my wife when it was a really emotional thing, like she's about to send an incendiary email, I'm like, don't click that send button. Don't you click it. Save it to drafts. And she's like, she's got her finger on the mouse. Don't click it. Click. Oh, no, you just did that.
You opened up a whole new topic there, John. People hiding behind screens. That's a very dangerous thing. You can say things you would never say. But you're absolutely right. You should always pause. People on the internet say remarkably strong, tough, terrible things because they're not face-to-face. That's the other end of the conversation we haven't had.
Right. Good stuff. Hey, we are over
John?
time, but I see Julian's got his hand up, and then we'll get on with our weekend. What's up, Julian? Is it your birthday?
Yeah, it is. Can you hear me?
Julian's
Thank
birthday.
you.
I think one of Adrian's birthdays
Happy
too.
birthday to you. Happy
Yeah, thank
birthday
you.
to you. Happy birthday, dear Julian. Happy
Happy
birthday to you.
All right.
So on the point of communication, I just wanted to say thanks very much everybody for your birthday wishes. It's been great. Sorry I missed it. I was playing golf with a couple of my buddies, so
Oh my
I
goodness.
just thought I'd dial it. John, but I've dialed in at the end to catch everything. So hey,
What
Priorities, Julian. Come on,
yeah,
man.
and you've even got
Absolutely,
your
yeah.
you've even got your, what is that brand? The B? Is it called? Bridgestone. Oh, Bridgestone tires, of course. I know it was
yeah.
You know, I see guys wearing like their Ping hats, or what's the other one? Callaway. All right. Anyway,
Yeah.
Bridgestone. There you go. Good to see you guys. Happy birthday, Julian, and I believe Adrian, one of our Adrians that are here. We got 3 Adrians online right now. Congratulations. Happy birthday. You made it. Let's do it again. Another year to each of us. So we'll get back here again on Monday.
Thank you.
All right. So everybody have a great weekend. Bring a friend. We've got lots more to come. So
Have a
thank
great
you
weekend,
all.
everybody.
Very good. We'll see you soon.
Great weekend.
See you
everybody.
later, guys. I'm off down the
See you next
pub.
week.
Bye.